Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we're going to be carrying on our series. And what we'd like here to do today is that when I get near an object, I would like to display this widget in front of the object. So basically what I want to do here is that as I start to approach, let's say, the sword, we display that widget, where is the sword location, and so on and so forth. So this is gonna be a very easy one, and let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do here is that I'm gonna go here to Inkscape, and I am gonna export this background here. Okay, so I'm gonna select this. There are two different pieces, so I'm just gonna do something like this, and actually I can do that. Let me just select this, and no, that, and then here. Why it's not allowing me to do that, so I'm just gonna allow to search all that stuff. I'm gonna right click and group, and there we go. So now I can move this thing around. So I'm gonna hold Control Shift E, right, and on here I am gonna select the place where I would like to export. In this case we have here the master UI, the tutorial, and here we're gonna go back to, I'm gonna call this, I'm gonna create a new folder called float widget, right? Because it's gonna be a float one, and it's gonna be called the background, right? Okay, so now what we need to do is that we're gonna go back here to the asset, and in here we are gonna go back to the master inventory. We're gonna open up the texture. We're gonna go back to the widget, and here we're gonna right click and create something called float widget, right? Widget. Now within the float widget, what I would like to do here is that I'm gonna go back here to that tutorial. I'm gonna open up here the float widget, and let me just open up here and see how does it look like. Doesn't look too bad. So what I'm gonna do here is that I'm just gonna drag and drop that widget back to here. And remember, we're just gonna call this t-float-background. All right. Now the next thing that we need to do is, of course, start work on the widget. So we're gonna go back to widgets here, and I'm gonna right click and create another folder called float widget. Right. Float widget. And now within the float widget, we're going to right click and create another blueprint widget. And this time we're going to call this WBP float widget. Now let's start to scope out this. So the first thing we want to add here is a border. I want to make sure we add a border, which is going to be our background. So we need to search here for the float. And there we go. So we got the float texture. Now I'm not entirely sure what is the best size, but I'm gonna make sure it fits. So I'm gonna do it, let's say, design custom on screen. I'm gonna do something like 400 by 100, right? And let's see, does it look too crowded? A little bit. Maybe we can do 80. It looks a little bit better. Maybe 500. Doesn't look too bad. I think we can work with this. So the idea is that we're gonna have here a couple of things. So the first one we need here, it's a horizontal box, right? And the next thing that we need here is we need here I would say a border, or instead of a border we can search for the item slot item, this one, right? And we could, so we have here within the border, so if I add 10, I'm gonna add maybe 20. Yeah, so that's fine. We do have a little bit, can I make it so it feels, or auto? Well, the problem is that we have the size here, right? So I'm gonna just make this width, let's say 100, so it fits here. 500 by 100. Of course, we can always scale this thing up and down, but for now, it should be fine. So now we have the item here. So we are gonna have the item slot, right? And then what we're gonna do is just we need to add the text. So in this case, we're gonna add the text right here. Fill, and we're gonna make sure we align on the center. Sorry, like this, vertically align. And now from the left, I'm just gonna add like 10%, 10 of padding. Now, hopefully this, let's add a big text so it does overflow. So we would like to wrap with a scale box, right? And there we go. That's all we got to do here, which is good. So now whatever the size, the name of the item, it will always fit on this box, which is fine. And now the next thing that we need to do here is that we need to search here on the font, and we would like to use the Cambria regular, right? Now, don't worry about the color, so let's just leave it like this for now. And I think that's pretty much what we need here. So now we're going to compile and save this. On the graph, we're going to basically create here a custom event, API load, let's call this start widget, right? And in here, we're going to need a couple of things. So the first thing we need here is the item itself, right? So here we're going to get, and we're going to search for API load item. And we need to pass here the item itself, right? And this, I think, is the item slot, but that's fine. Now, what the next one that we need to do is that we need to get the, let's say, the title, right? Make sure it's set to a variable. And we're gonna get here, and basically we're gonna do here, we're gonna set the text right from here, and then the text will be this item. So I'm just gonna break here, and I am gonna search, I'm gonna get the name, and that's it. So all we gotta do here, we're gonna compile and save. And that should be everything that we gotta do for the widget. So the next thing that we have to do here is that we need to make sure that we load this item when the player is around the range of this, okay? So to do that, we need to search this item itself. So we're gonna go back to the base picker here. And what I'm gonna do here, I'm going to open up the blueprint editor, and here on the base Apple picker, we're going to add a widget, right? So here we can select what is the class that we would like the widget to display. So in this thing here, we can search for the widget, which is going to be the float widget one here, right? So as you can see, it's a little bit like it's not exactly how it's supposed to display, right? So let me have a look. How does it look? It looks a little bit messy. It doesn't look great, right? It doesn't look too bad, but it's just a little bit out of reach, right? So what we got to do here is that we need to change a couple of things. So what we're going to change here is that instead of world, we're going to do screen. So what happens is that it's going to be always on the screen. Okay, it's going to be always on the screen. Then the next thing that we would like to do here is to control the size of the widget. So in this case, it's going to be 500 by 100, right? Let's see. It does look a little bit better, which is nice, right? Cool. Now we need to control when this appears and when this thing disappears, right? So basically, we can go back to, let's say, on the event graph, and oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. I'm gonna copy this and delete that. We need to go to the BP base inventory item picker, not on the Apple one. And then from that, we're gonna go to the BP base interaction. I think that's fine. We just need the base inventory picker. I'm gonna paste that thing here. Sorry. Because this needs to be attached to the mesh as well. Make sure it's attached to the mesh. Let's just press play and see. Now look at this. It's always on the screen. Doesn't matter what happened with the item, it's always there for us to see it. Now, all we got to do here is that when the player interacts with that, so first we need to do one thing here. So first, on the begin play, we're gonna get widget class, I think, or get widget. So this will return us a widget, okay? And what we can do from this is that, I'm just gonna close that, I'm gonna close this. We could now cast to the float widget, right? Now from the float widget, we can call the API start widget. So in here, we will need, let's say, the item that we are trying to load, right? So we do not have the slot item, but we can make one. We can fake an item. So the slot ID doesn't matter. What we need here, of course, is the item itself, which I believe we do not have information of the item right here. We do have the item data table row, but we do not have the information of this item right here. So what we can do there here is that we can get this. We can get get data row here. Hold that. So when the item has been found, this is gonna be the item here. Now we can break this and we can plug the row name. And here what we can do it is that when the item is found, we can attach this right there. Okay. Now it's just a question of getting this. And when it's valid, we set, I think it's called visibility. And we want to make it visible, right? And when the player leaves out of range, we want to make hidden, right? So something like that. So let's see. So if you go here and you leave up, down, up, and down. So it does work. It's just that it's not working it's not loading the item here. Just break. What is that? So this is the item itself, which is good. So we are definitely passing this thing here. So we're passing the item on the float widget. So we do call the API load item. Set the visibility, item slot. So true, otherwise set visibility to collapsed. Oh, so if the item is full. So we need to make sure it's full set to true, otherwise it won't work. Because remember, this is working for multiple purposes. And there we go, nice. Now, one more thing that we need to do here on the base inventory picker. It's just that we need to set here, I mean, we can set member, right? I would like to find a better way to do this, but we can set the quantity to whatever is the quantity of the item that we have it right here. Okay, and then we plug it there. Now, by default, make sure the widget visibility is set to false. Okay, so it's always false. So now what happens is that you need to step up to be able to see the item, right? There is a couple of issues with this, but to be honest, it looks quite cool. Like, the issue that I mean is that sometimes it could be quite distracting having all this. So what you could do here is that you could make it so it only display, let's say, the item icon, right? So in this case, you could just maybe display the item icon without the name. But to be honest, I quite like this. You can even do it as well, guys. Since this, I mean, what we can do is that wrap with a scale box, right? You can wrap this with a scale box. What you can do on the picker here is that instead of having this thing, which is huge on the screen, we can make it something like, I don't know, 200 by maybe 40, right? Something like that. I don't know. So you see, it looks way smaller, and it's just a nice way of control. And because we added the scale box, it doesn't look too intrusive on the screen. So it's up to you with the size that you want to. And basically that's the tutorial that I wanted to do. It's very simple, you know, it's something very powerful to do. We can even test here, for example, I think as a server. Yeah, it does work as a server, which is fine. I think if you play here as a client as well, I don't see any issue with this. So the client here, so everything works as a client and server and all that stuff. So yeah, we do have some issues here, but I do pretend to release, this is just related to the mapping context, so it's nothing to do with the inventory for now. But I do pretend to release series fixing, get a little bit more in depth with the network. So for now, the standalone, it's fine. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this tutorial. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. What I would like to do here as well is that eventually I would like to create some kind of a log system. So we have a little log and then we know what happened with the item. But right now, our inventory system is looking really, really nice. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you guys in the next one.